I didn't think we could fall in love.
Okay, so starting off this look by prepping and priming my eyes using my MAC paint pot, and this one is in the color Soft Ochre, and simply applying it onto my entire lid, a light layer, using my clean ring finger. I usually use a synthetic brush for this part, but I couldn't find it and I didn't have a clean one, so finger worked just as well. Next, I'm going to go ahead and apply some NARS pressed powder. This one is in the shade Mountain. Using a large shading brush, I'm applying it onto my entire lid from lash line to brow. This will help blending, and since this look requires a ton of blending, this step was kind of a must for me. The first color that I'm going to start this look off with is Peach Smoothie, and this one is from Makeup Geek. I'm going to simply be grabbing that color with my Sigma E40 blending brush and sweeping it back and forth along the crease. Now this is really going to help start to warm the eye up a little bit, and it works beautifully as a transition shade. The next color that I'm going to be working with is a little bit warmer than the last. This one is Creme Brulee, also from Makeup Geek. I'm going to be applying it in the exact same way that I applied the previous color, which is just by sweeping it back and forth along the crease and building the color intensity up just a little bit. Next is going to be Cocoa Bear, also from Makeup Geek, and I'm applying this with the exact same brush from my previous two steps, but I'm going to be going in a little bit, I'm applying it a little bit lower than the previous two. So in the previous two steps, I was applying it along the crease, and I was kind of trying to work it a little bit, even a little bit above the crease, but this one is going to go either on the crease or a little bit below the crease. So I'm wanting to get that nice gradient effect going, since this is a nice smoky eye. So just working this color in circular buffing motions as well as windshield wiping motions in order to get a nice blend. And then comes the big commitment. So this is the Maybelline Eye Studio gel liner in Blackest Black, and I'm simply applying it with a shading brush or like a shadow brush, a regular shadow brush, onto the mobile lid area. So I'm not going too far out onto the outer V, and I'm not going too far up onto the crease. I'm going to stop right before the crease and right before the outer V. Since we are going to be blending all of this out, that is naturally going to go in those areas, but you don't want it to be too dark in those areas. I mean, unless you prefer that look. I personally don't. I want it to look nice and smoked out, which is why I'm going to stop right there so that I am able to blend without overwhelming the eye with black. Next comes the black eyeshadow. This one is Corrupt from Makeup Geek, and I am simply going to be applying it with the other side of the shadow brush. I'm applying that on top of the gel liner that I applied onto the lid. Now, some people like to smoke out the gel liner before they go in with a really dark shadow. I, however, don't, so it's just personal preference what order you want to go in, but this is the one I'm taking. Once you're done with that, you're simply going to blend the edges and blend and blend. And when you think you're done blending, you're going to blend some more. This requires a ton of blending. So I'm just going in with this blending brush and just really getting after the edges, because as you can see, they're pretty harsh, they are pretty noticeable, and you don't want that. You want a nice gradient effect so that the darkest, shadows and the darkest color is right on the lid, and then it kind of just all smokes out and it looks really nice. So that is what I'm doing here. I'm just blending everything together, blending everything going up, but I'm very careful as to not go too high up, because you don't want to go too far and then you end up with black all the way to the brow bone. You definitely want to take your time and make sure that you continue to blend along the same area before you drag any of the dark colors or any of the black up higher above the crease. So I do that a little bit later. I will go up a little bit higher, but I'm careful to try to keep it kind of far away from my brow bone, as you'll see. And then going back with Cocoa Bear and applying that along the crease in order to bring some of the warmth back. I felt like after blending all of the black out, it overpowered all of the warmth, and I didn't want that to hide. I didn't want that to be overshadowed. And so I went back with the warm color and just applied a little bit more of that along the crease to bring some of the warmth back. And then just continued to blend away. As I said before, this look requires a ton of blending in order to make it look really nice and smoked out. And so what I kept doing is just buffing it and continued to buff the colors together. And then I also worked on the nice gradient going up toward my brow bone. And the way that I do this is I apply less pressure going up toward my brow than I do along the crease, so that way it all looks nice and smoked out. And then I went back in with Corrupt, which is the really black shadow, and applied that onto the lid once again because I felt like after all the blending had happened, it kind of took away from the black, so I wanted it to come back and be really intense. And then just lightly blended the edges without adding anything additionally. And of course, after the eyes, after all the shadows on the eyes, I had a lot of fallout, and so I just wiped it away using a makeup wipe, and I made sure to apply some moisturizer underneath my eye. Moving on to the face, I'm starting off by using the Smashbox Photo Finish Foundation Primer and applying that onto my entire face using my clean fingers. And then of course filling in my pores. This one is from Benefit and I'm simply using it by applying it or pressing it into my skin using my clean hands once again. And for me, of course, color correcting. This one here is from Becca. It is the Under Eye Brightening Corrector and simply applying that onto the entire under eye area. Most people don't necessarily need color correcting, but as you can see, I definitely do. Next, for foundation, I'm going to be applying the NARS All Day Luminous Weightless Foundation, and I am currently in the shade Barcelona, simply working it into sections on my face. I find that this foundation, it dries pretty quickly, so like if you don't work on it right away, it'll set, and then it's kind of harder to blend at that point in time. So I typically work in sections anyway, but especially when I'm wearing this foundation, and I absolutely love it because the coverage is great, and it literally does feel like you're not wearing anything at all. So truly weightless. For concealer, I'm going to be using the MAC Mineralized Concealer and I'm currently in the shade NC35 and just applying that onto the entire under eye area. And blending it out using my damp beauty blender before going in with my RCMA No Color Powder and setting everything in place. And then tight lining with my Maybelline gel liner. This is my absolute favorite part. Like, don't we all love to tight line? No, of course, I'm kidding. This is sarcasm. I hate it. But it's definitely a necessity when it comes to a smoky eye because you want all of that intense darkness and blackness around the eye. Moving on to the waterline, which I don't hate as much. This one is the MAC eyeliner in the shade Smolder, and just applying that onto the entire under eye or waterline area. And then I'm going to be grabbing Cocoa Bear once again with my flat definer brush from Sigma and applying a light layer of that onto my entire lower lash line before going in with Corrupt and applying a little bit of that on top. And then grabbing my pencil brush, some of the creme brulee color, and blending everything out on the bottom. For lashes today, I'm using the Featherettes from House of Lashes. And shaping and darkening my brows using the brow beater from Urban Decay, and this one is in the shade Dark. Next, applying some mascara. This is the Maybelline Lash Sensational Mascara, and I'm applying that onto my top lashes in order to blend my falsies with my real ones, and also applying a nice coat to the bottom ones to make them really pop as well. For contour and bronzing today, I'm going to be using the Smashbox contour palette by first grabbing, obviously, the contour color and applying it onto the hollows of my cheeks using a small contouring brush. And then grabbing the bronze shade with the exact same brush and applying that above the contour. So I usually start where I place the contour and then just kind of swirl my brush upward so that way it's a nice gradient from the contour to the bronze going upward, and it's not two very defined lines where you applied your contour color, which is a little bit more on the gray side, and then where you applied your bronze color, which is more on the warm side. For blush, I'm going to be applying a little bit more of a peach blush than a pink one. This one is the Baked Blush from Milani in the shade Luminoso. And applying it onto the outer portions of my cheeks using a large angled brush. For highlight today, I'm going to be using the Becca Jacqueline collaboration face palette and grabbing Prosecco Pop using my tapered highlighter brush and pretty much applying that everywhere. I'm applying that onto the entire cheek area, onto the tops of my cheeks, onto the temple area, onto the bridge of my nose, and onto the Cupid's bow. To prep my lips, I'm going to be applying the Stila Lush Lips Water Plumping Primer. So I usually do this when I'm going to be wearing a really dry matte liquid lipstick, which is what I'm doing today. And then grabbing Lolita 2 from Kat Von D and applying that onto my lips. At first, I thought that I was going to feel okay with this lip color on the lips and this eye color like combined, but for whatever reason, I just didn't like it. And so I went in with Noble, also from Kat Von D, and applied that onto the lips, which softened and toned down the orange in Lolita. And I felt like that was a lot better. So mixing the two together to make my own custom shade, and yeah, loving that look better. And that completes the look. Thank you all so much for watching. I truly hope that you enjoyed this video as much as I always enjoy making these for you. As always, take care, and I will see you in my next video.
Didn't think we could fall in love, broken from the start.